Hey guys, Carl here from Athletes Authority, and in this week's free training, I'm going to help you put together a content plan that actually makes sense. So you've probably heard as a coach, a trainer and a consultant that you need to produce quality and contextual content for your audience. And you'd be right in that, and you've probably heard that from quite a few different people. But the issue with that is, it doesn't actually tell you how to go about producing quality and contextual content for your audience so they know you, they like you, and finally that they trust you. So we're going to do something about that today and help you put together a 1-hour content plan that actually solves meaningful problems for your audience, but also funnels them into your core product or your core service without costing you an arm and a leg with Facebook advertising and Instagram, boosted posts, etc., etc. So people often ask me this because not only in my mentorship where we mentor over 50 coaches, but they ask me, how do you produce content so prolifically and so effectively, and how do you say, get 500 opt-ins to a piece of content? Now, I'm going to tell you why first. It's because I know what the end result is and I start with the destination in mind. So I don't just nitpick a piece of content and say, I'm going to roll with this. I know that it fits into a bigger puzzle and there is a complete solution at the end of the road for that audience. And I'm going to help you with that today so you can figure that out for yourself. So let's start to talk with some of the current problems with content. Content for the vast majority of people and coaches, trainers, consultants, is erratic, it's inconsistent, and it's often off-brand. So let me kind of delve a little bit deeper into that. Often you kind of decide on the fly, you're filming something for a client and go, oh, that's a great content post. So you film it and then you chuck something on Instagram with a bit of a caption below, and that's your content for the day. Or it could be inconsistent. You could really push a lot of energy in your content production and then fall off the bandwagon for a few weeks and then have to kind of re-engage in that process. Or you can do what I've done in the past, which is produce content that is off-brand. And none of these things are helpful in helping you get to the position where your audience knows you, likes you, and trusts you. So first big problem with content is for the vast majority of people. Second issue is content doesn't take the audience closer to your core product. And I mentioned this just before. Most of the time it is just nitpicked out of thin air without any real clear destination in mind. And I'm going to give you a solution to that shortly. And finally, content doesn't solve meaningful problems. There is no point rolling out a post on how to do a plank. The plank has been demonstrated 1,000 times before. There is far more content than you ever need to learn kipping pull-ups or planks or how to do a deadlift. You need to start to solve much more meaningful problems for your audience. So unless your audience really needs to know how to do a plank effectively, there's probably better content for you that I'm going to teach you how to figure out in a short while that will actually help funnel your target through to your core product and hopefully end up with you making more money and doing more of what you love and reaching more people. And so if you're producing content this way, which is the vast majority of coaches, trainers, and consultants, what does this lead to? Well, you don't see the value in it and you don't get any kind of reward. So then you come up with the excuse about, oh, I don't have the time, I'm working too hard, I've got too many coaching clients to worry about filming them and producing content. Or you might have a mental block. You sit down to do something and then mind goes blank and you don't really know what to do next. Or you're actually producing content that just doesn't do its job at all. And then neither of these three things are going to help you become an industry leader. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this whiteboard around, come back to you in a second and give you the solution to this problem so you can start to be an industry leader that stands out, gets noticed for the right reasons and produces meaningful content to solve meaningful problems. Stay with me. Here we go. So in the last video, I just showed you some of the problems that kind of exist and show up and rear their ugly head when you go about trying to produce content as a coach, trainer, and consultant. And now I'm here to give you the answer and the solution so you don't kind of spin your wheels, run on the hamster wheel without actually getting an effective result for the time you invest into the content you produce. So to the right-hand side, I've created something called a content funnel. You've heard of funnels before, right? They usually attract someone in the top of the funnel who might be your target market or your audience, and they funnel them through to being a purchasing customer. I've used this same framework but redone it for content because it works. This framework makes a lot of sense for most people, and it will help you produce great content. But the biggest issue that most coaches make is that they start at the top of the funnel thinking of single content ideas, and you might write a list down of a whole bunch of things to do, or you might just nitpick off the gym floor, but this is not the solution that I'm going to propose. In fact, I'm going to flip this and say, we need to start with your complete solution. This is your core product. This is a thing that takes someone from A to Z and takes them further away from their problems and much closer towards their prize. This is everything you've got, the full package, everything that would help them get what they want. So you need to get really clear on that complete solution first before you can move up this funnel. So what does a complete solution entail? Well, it probably entails some form of implementation from you. So some exchange of your time, perhaps for money. Maybe it's in monthly seminars like we do for the mentorship. Maybe it's in time on the gym floor with that client. But there is some form of implementation involved in the complete solution. It also probably have some back-end support, maybe some accountability, some nutrition support and things like that. So make sure you know what complete solution is, because I'm about to tell you why. That complete solution is made up of a bunch of principles, pillars, or core values. We could call it really anything, but it's the principles that underpin why your core product exists, because you believe that you can do something better than Joe next to you, right? And you've probably got some principles that you follow or value that will help get the client that you're working with what they want. And you probably know what they are. We have them for the athlete development program. We have them for the coach mentorship. For example, we believe that industry-leading coaches aren't as great at what they do, but they also become really effective at business systems as well, because world's best kept secrets don't become industry leaders without figuring out the world of business. So that might be a principle of ours, and that feeds our complete solution, which in this instance would be coach mentorship. So you would have probably between 3 and 5 principles that would underpin what you do and govern what you do. For example, if you're a powerlifting coach, no doubt your big 3 comes into those principles. No doubt kind of selective accessory work comes into that. Maybe there's nutrition in that. Maybe there is effective mobility specific to powerlifting training. Whatever those principles are. Maybe you're an athlete development coach and you really value sports specificity. You really value making sure there's no weak links in their chain or weak links in the chain. So whatever that might be for you, make sure that once we know the complete solution, you get really clear on what the principles are that underpin why you do what you do. And there's probably between 3 and 5 of those. Once you do that, write them down. So what I need from you today, if you want to kind of do the homework and actually get the value out of this, get a piece of paper and recreate this funnel for me. Start with the complete solution and articulate and specify exactly what that is. Once you do that for me, then come up here and figure out what your principles are. 3 to 5 is probably going to be enough. And then within each principle are a whole bunch of different probably ideas. So if this is principle 1, and I'll grab a pen, and let's say this principle is no weak links, right? So we're going to put no weak links. And excuse my really bad left-handed writing. So then we'll just put here no weak links. So now that we know that one corresponds to this one up here, we're going to list down a whole bunch of things that relate to no weak links. It might be mobility. It might be making sure you've got a good balance in your posture. It might be making sure that you don't lack quality energy systems development. All these different things that will come up into no weak links, and you'd list them here. And what these end up becoming are single content ideas, single pieces of information that you could share, that you could write a blog about, that you could do a video about, that you could do a podcast on. Whatever the platform is relatively irrelevant at this stage, but you need to know what the piece of content is. Then you might have another one here, and it might be, if we're talking about our athlete development, one of them's no weak links. Jesse, what is another one of Scott's principles?
Champion the athlete.
Champion the athlete. So let's go champion the athlete. So that would be 2. So we're going to go champion the athlete. And within that, he might have self-accountability, he might have mindset, he might have talking about possibility, he might have goal setting, and we have a whole list of things that could become single content ideas. And then there'll be 3, 4, and 5, and you just go ahead and fill them out. And by the time you've done that, it's going to take about 20 or 30 minutes to do. You're going to have between 15 and 30, 40 perhaps single content ideas. Now, things don't need to end there if you don't want them to. You could then do just one piece of content on the problems of having weak links. So not even providing a solution. And then you could write another piece around that for the solution. So you could actually double. If you've got 20 here, you could just do problem and solution as 2 different pieces of content and double that immediately. So I'll run that through in a second. But as you can see, this is a really, really simple way to effectively get clear on what type of content you want to produce, but always funnels people down into your complete solution where they might want to start working with you. Because if you're producing content just to pee up against the wall, then you're wasting your time. It needs to be effective and it needs to have an end goal, and the destination is for them to work with you with your complete solution. So now what do? Let's imagine we've filled all of them out. We've got 30, 40, 50 perhaps content ideas that you might want to do. How do you actually go about producing that single content idea? And to the right hand, I might spin around. I'm going to kind of run through the step-by-step process in order to actually produce a single piece of content. Now, this is a structure that I've adapted from something called AIDA or AIDA. It is attention, interest, desire, action is the acronym. And I've just modified this somewhat to make it a little bit easier for you. So if you remember back to the start of this video, what did I do first? I set the authority, I told you why I thought I was a good person to help you here, and then secondly, identified the problems. So that's where we start. We're going to start any single piece of content with identifying the problems of your target market. If going back, we were talking about a no weak links post, it might be an athlete who injures themselves. That might be the problem, or it might be the athlete who kind of gets close to returning to performance and then falls back and gets re-injured, whatever that might be. So just keep that in mind. We're always going to start with identifying the problem. And you will probably know organically and naturally what they are. But if you do need to articulate it, go ahead and articulate and write those down. Once you identify the problem, 1 paragraph on figuring out how that problem affects them is really good. So, 1 paragraph on identifying the problem is probably as effective as you need to be there. The second paragraph, maybe the next 2 or 3 paragraphs about agitating the target market. So if you're speaking to an athlete, you want to agitate them. You want to tell them how that manifests, why that is a problem for them. And you kind of want to like grind their gears, for lack of a better way to do this. I'm going to tell you why. Because if you can effectively identify why that problem is really affecting their life, they're more likely to want to do something about it. So don't see this as you being a manipulative kind of content creator. You're not manipulating them. You actually, as long as you intend to help them with your complete solution, you're actually doing them a service by funneling them effectively to what you can really offer, where you can give them the ultimate prize that they want. So it's really important to be willing to grind your target market's gears. So keep that in mind when you agitate. You want to do something about that. Otherwise, you might lose them at that stage. So once you've identified the problem, you need to agitate them and keep them interested. So this kind of next block, the next block of your content needs to keep them interested. And it's A-I-D-A. So once we've done the first 2, we want to speak to their desires. We want to tell them what they want. And you probably already know. If you don't, then I'm concerned that you might not be clear on who your target market is. So you should already know what ultimately do they want. For us, our athletes want to become the best they've ever been. They want to have the confidence that they can kind of take on their competition and come out on top. For coaches, we know that what they want is to be an industry leader. So we're really, really clear on their desires. And we can then start to speak about their desires to make sure that we keep them engaged in the piece of content. Then finally, you actually need to do something meaningful and solve it. So whether that is to take the next step with you, whether that is to take action and buy something, whether that is actually giving them the complete solution to their content problem like I've just done, you need to know what that last piece of the pie is, which is to solve and for them to ultimately take action. And that's what the last A stands for. Attention, interest, desire, action. So the finish of your content piece should always be some kind of problem solution. So keep that in mind when you're producing content. So, now that we've kind of had a bit of an overview on all of that, I would love to get some feedback. If you guys have any questions, you can email me at info@athletesauthority.com.au. My name's Carl, and I hope you enjoyed this week's free training.